Did on the part of both participants. Sunset flip.
Tell me when I'm telling lies.
Let me in.
Hey, it's the Toxic Reign Scandal featuring TBK, the Turnbuckle King. We are back here at it again. This time we're going to talk about truth behind Summerslam 1992 match. And we're going to talk about the infamous Bret Hart versus the British Bulldog for the Intercontinental Championship and the truth behind that match, what was going on behind the scenes. Now, this is one of the best matches in SummerSlam history and possibly in Intercontinental Championship history, too. You got the champion, Bret Hart, putting in the work, on his way transitioning out of the mid-card scene into the main event scene, meaning going for the WWE Championship by putting over a talent that is getting his way into the mid-card scene, which is the British Bulldog. But before we get into that, let's see who entered the locker room, because make sure you get your seat at the locker room. Let's see who came into the locker room tonight. How you guys doing? We got King Rule TV. Salute to you. And we got Carl Myers. Salute to you. Mr. Goodbrain Reaction himself, the leader of the Righteous Fear, said here that that boy was a on crack rock bulldog. That is, crack is whack. Yeah, we gonna talk about it. Get to see the locker room. This is definitely one of the most dirtiest stories. Because of that, we are definitely going to air the dirty laundry on this one. The dirty laundry may be so full, you may have to get you a few extra baskets to get all this dirty laundry to clean it. One basket ain't gonna do it. It's so much dirty laundry. We got to get a few extra bags to get all these clothes of this dirty laundry. That's right, we're gonna talk about it. Just say no, you doggone right. But yeah, guys, and I'll give a brief story before we go into the interviews by the Hitman himself. Let's talk about it a little bit here. Let's give a little brief summary. This here is about Bret Hart, and it's talking about the intensity between Bret Hart and British Bulldog was undeniable at SummerSlam 92. Now, despite the great match, Bret Hart was dealing a lot more stress than his brother-in-law that night in front of 1,000 fans, because it was a lot. Meaning that this is at the Wembley Stadium outside of London, England. The same stadium that AEW currently is hanging their hat on. Of all in saying we did 8,000 at the Wembley Stadium, yada, 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 yada. This is the same stadium for that. That's what they're bragging on today. Well, what I mean by that is, we know that they had their famous match there. We are aware of that. But since they had their match there at the event, we know too that it was 80,000 that night. And this is real life brother-in-law, British Bulldog and Bret Hart battling for the Intercontinental Championship. And this was the main event too. Now, this was a time where both of them was over with the fans and everything was great, but everything was not all what it seemed. The thing about it is, Bret Hart, the Hitman, even though he was putting on British Bulldog, he had to carry British Bulldog through the entire match, not just a part of the match, not just middle of the match, the entire match. Isn't that crazy? Anyway, British Bulldog was being walked through the match because he forgot everything that he was supposed to do. Why did British Bulldog forget an important match? This could be pretty much the biggest match of his career. He's at SummerSlam, the second biggest event of the year. It's because Bret Hart, his brother-in-law, British Bulldog, was under the influence. Yes, British Bulldog was on all the drugs you could think of during that time. And what's crazy about it is he had a lot of personal issues, a lot of personal demons. But the thing about it is, it led frustration to not just himself, but Bret Hart as well. It was put more pressure on Bret, not only to put his brother-in-law over. And it said it resulted from many unfortunate choices. And the thing about it is, Bret Hart talked about this in his autobiography. Bret Hart, his autobiography was Hitman, My Real Life and Cartoon World of Wrestling. I haven't read that book yet, but I heard it's great. And the thing about it is, Vince McMahon had big plans for SummerSlam in '92. J.J. Dillon, who was the Vince's talent coordinator, he was basically doing Vince's dirty work with firing everything. But the thing about it is, rumor is they was keeping this from Vince that Bulldog was under influence, because had Vince had found out, things would have took a turn for the worse. You know what I mean? So, thing about it is, they said that Davey Boy Smith, aka British Bulldog, was high as a kite, and he said that thing about it is, Bret Hart had to make sure he put on a hell of a show. He had to make sure that, because you got to think about it. This was the main event. This was a 25-minute match. Okay. And it said here, they said when he arrived in London, with thousands of fans poured out the hotel lobby to chant his name in the streets. And the thing about it is, they was trying to find out British Bulldog. He was out somewhere with his family, but he said, Bret Hart, he said he didn't see him to the required entrance rehearsal at Wembley Stadium the night before the show. And then he asked him why he had returned his calls all summer. He said he wasn't even looking in the eye. And then later on, he fessed up that he had been smoking crack with Jim for weeks. Jim Anvil, by the way. Jim Anvil. So he said that British Bulldog was smoking crack with Jim for weeks and was terrified. That's how ashamed he was. He said he had gone back to being the same helpless kid I rescued from Dynamite kid 10 years earlier. So this was a problem that British Bulldog had, and he pretty much, went back to his old ways. And it said, trust me, Davey, I can do all I can to get you through tomorrow, meaning walking through the match. He said he nodded. He sat him down through a crash course, going over and over our match and making him recite the moves back to me. Basically, it was like he was babysitting him, like a little brother type of thing, father-son type of thing. And it said it was now completely up to Bret Hart to save the match. The 25-minute match, main event, Wembley Stadium, SummerSlam '92. Could the stakes be any higher, right? So they said the following day they arrived at Wembley earlier. The sun hit overcast sky. There was a collective sigh of relief because it looked like it wasn't going to rain. The thing about it is, I'll go into further details. Let me see. They said once the show started, he was worried and waited, fearing that the other wrestlers would run too long, leaving him and Davey with not enough time to tell our story. They said if we had run out of time, it would be my tough love sin. Davey beat me in a short match. It could ruin me in England, because that was very important to Bret Hart to make sure he's over, and of course make sure the match was perfection. That's why it was excellence of execution. And it said one positive side note was that the referee was Gorilla Monsoon, his boy Joey Morella, who in my opinion was the best WWF ref. I knew he'd do his best to help me communicate with Davey once we got out there. So this was man. This was a clear-cut case of Davey Boy just not having his stuff together, guys. Family Feud, sort of kind of first bloodline storyline. Italian Dad, Jim Earnhardt. DDE, salute to you. Now, did you guys able to get a quick rundown? Did you understand what I was saying? Following the whole backstory of Bret Hart and British Bulldog with their match. This was British Bulldog versus Bret Hart 1992 SummerSlam. And the whole thing about it is Bret had to walk British Bulldog through the whole match because British Bulldog was cracked out. He was smoked crack with not Jim Anvil Neidhart, Natalia's dad, and Bret Hart had to carry the whole match because he wanted to make sure he put on the show. And Vince McMahon did not know about it, and they also said they had a great referee in Joey Morella, and to make sure he could help communicate the match to Davey Boy Smith, because Davey Boy Bret Hart was telling him the whole match, and Davey Boy had to memorize the stuff and recite it back with Bret. And this is a man that was under influence. So that's the crazy part about it. This was a very highly anticipated match. Like I said, Bret was the Intercontinental Champion. This was a man with the belt. He had put a very, very good reputation behind his name, and also behind the Intercontinental Championship. He did not want to leave that, in a bad name, as he was putting over Davey Boy Smith, aka British Bulldog. So he had to make sure he did his best. He had to make sure that he knew that if anything bad fell on British Bulldog that night, that the company will look upon Bret Hart, because this not only make him look bad, it will ruin his main event push going to becoming WWE champion later on. He knew that would eventually hurt his push. So, in other words, the point I'm trying to make is a package deal. If British looks good, I look good. If British looks bad, I look bad. So either way, British had to be good for this match, so Bret could be good, And we didn't want none bad, because if it got bad, it would not turn out well for Mr. Bret Hart, definitely British Bulldog. It would definitely ruin his run. Like I said, you guys let me know if I'm going too fast, though. This is a very important match, important story. That's why I want to give a backstory on this. But other than that, it was just Bret. I know Bret Hart himself was very disappointed in British Bulldog, how he could be drugged out such an important match, especially in Wembley Stadium. It was very disappointing in him, and you could tell by his facial expression that he was not pleased. Even though the match got through, you could tell Bret got a big weight off his back. That's why he looks so disappointed and pissed off right here in this still right here. So that was not no acting. That was a real deal. And that was just, British Bulldog, he pretty much got on Bret Hart's list.
You just made the list!
So yeah, this is crazy. That also shows what kind of professional and how brave a wrestler Bret Hart really was. Because if you ask me right now in the live chat, the way Bret was able to carry that match and build it to perfection, could someone have Bill Goldberg done that? No. Could someone like, I don't know, not even a better name to Bill Goldberg, I don't even think people like, a in-ring, someone that's all right could do it. I don't think, maybe John Cena could pull that off, maybe Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins possibly, but someone like a Goldberg, Braun Strowman, Hulk Hogan, it's not happening. It would have been a disaster, to say the least. And then you would got these kind of chants from the crowd. So yeah, this was a very, very classic match to remember, not just for being a great match on SummerSlam main eventing, but the fact they did this with British Bulldog literally cracked out. I wonder with this lifestyle, I want to know, British Bulldog, look how jacked he was. I wonder was it this much drug usage over the years? It led to ultimately British Bulldog passing away in 2002, because he passed away at the age of 39 due to his very, very rough lifestyle of alcohol and drugs. Because he was very young when he passed away, and And I think it was because his lifestyle. Look how jacked he was, all the drugs, everything. But yeah, I'm just impressed how this match could. You would never know. Watch this match even now. What 30, 32 years later, that the man was on drugs. He's being carried.
Here on the part of both participants. Sunset flip.
You would never know that type of stuff was going down in that kind of match. So, man, storytelling is everything. They are not lying about that. They're definitely not lying about how storytelling should go. I'm also here on X right now, guys. If you want to check out more, come to Toss Ring Scandal on YouTube. We're going to enter the interviews now. Bret Hart himself, the Hitman, he did a couple interviews. He did one with Inside the Ropes, and he did one with, I believe, I think he did this in back. It was called. Did an interview with somebody else. I can't remember, but the first one I do know we'll cover is Inside the Ropes, and we'll see what Mr. Bret Hart, the Hitman, had to say about this. Let's keep the likes up, guys. We got 12 people in here. You know, let's keep the likes up, subscribe, and keep the notification bell on. So bear with me, guys. I'm going to get this ready. I'll have the interview up.
Shout out to Wembley against the British Bulldog at Summerslam 1992. I feel like we would be cheating on London to not bring it up for 2 seconds. I mean, do you look back at that as like, how do you remember it in your head now? Like, what are your memories of it?
Well, I think it's probably my third, like straight up there with my favorite matches of all time. I always loved that match. I thought it was a beautiful story. And I also think that the fact that I lost that match is what made me, especially over here in the UK. I think I sort of understood that I was, both Bulldog and I were both very popular at the time. So I was really over in England. I know Bulldog was really over in England. And if we wrestled in Wembley Stadium, I think it's like it was safe for me to say, well, they're probably going to have, the fans are going to have to go with Davey Boy because that's their homeboy. And I also knew that they had a huge, like a lot of the fans really, really liked me a lot. Like, so there was like a huge pull. It was a tug of war, which is like having a crush on two different girlfriends. It's like, which one do you like? And I knew that the beauty of the match with Davey, and most wrestlers don't understand this stuff, but or at least they don't seem to. But I understood that the beauty of the match with Davey was that upon walking out to the ring, like you watch the whole card happen. I don't know if anyone thought like, oh, Bulldog and Bret Hart will be like third or fifth or second on the card or early. And a lot of times they paste it, like Vince will figure that stuff out. You don't know till you get to the building. But I knew we were on last. And I also knew that when I think Davey walked out first and it was this huge ovation. And then I walked out and it's like this huge ovation for me. And the fans were really torn between the two of us. But I also understood that nobody really knew who was going to win. Like, so you can't predict who's going to win, which is that's when you're going to have a really great wrestling match, is when the fans are so into it that they don't know who's going to win the match. And so I knew that. I said, they're not going to know who's going to win, me or Davey. I think if you think about it, if Davey had lost that match and I had won, it would have been just as dramatic. It would have been in the same kind of euphoria kind of that you want. It would have been a very, very positive thing, and it would have been a big win for me. But at the same time, it was Davey. And I knew that, like, I put that match together, and the move we used at the ending for the finish, you know, I had that finishing move in my head for, I don't know, 7 or 8, 10 years. I can remember one time I offered that. I remember I gave that idea to Brian Blair of the Killer Bees for a tag match. It might have been a Saturday Night Main Event. I said, yeah, you go for a sunset flip and I'll hook your arms or whatever. And I remember describing it to him and he goes, that's so lame. You know, it's like such a, let's come up with something else. And I remember it's like, you don't understand. That's like the greatest finish in the world. Nobody sees it coming. Nobody can see it. Nobody can expect it. And it happens so fast and there's no way out of it. Like once Davey collapsed on top of me and pinned me, I'm pinned. There's nothing I can do about it. I couldn't do anything till he got off me. And it was a beautiful ending. And I remember going, I'll keep that. I remember saying I wasted on the Killer Bees or wasted on the Rougeau brothers or wasted on somebody. It's like, I'll save it, put it in my pocket for someday when I really need it. And when it came to Wembley, it's like I remember it's like before I ever wrestled Davey, it's like I got the perfect ending. I got the ending that is going to make him and it's going to make me both because there's going to be it's not going to hurt me to lose like that. Like it's such a classy way to lose. And I was really proud of that match. And I know Davey, had some drug problems and issues at the time and he was not as prepared for that match. But I don't want anyone to ever think that Davey didn't give 100% in that match. And he was there for everything. He was step for step for a guy that was sucking it up and trying really hard to keep up with me and make all that magic happen. I thought Davey delivered in every way in that match, despite all the problems that he had. And I don't ever like anyone to think that he wasn't, part of that match with me, that it was all me. It was both of us. And I think wrestling is a lot more like figure skating than any other sport. Like it's you can't do it by yourself. You have to have a good, someone to dance with. And Davey was a really good dance partner for me.
Round of applause for the British Bulldog, everybody.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard.
All right, guys, that's Bret Hart doing an interview with Inside the Ropes. He talked about his match and famous match with himself and his British Bulldog. Thing about it is, do we agree with Bret Hart said about the match making both look good? Now, he said the match could have either made him or British Bulldog. It would have been a dramatic finish either way. And then he said also as well that he didn't do 100% everything, that British Bulldog gave 100%. How can you do that when you're under the influence? Did he really give us 100% or he gave us 50% or less? I think that's cap what Bret Hart saying.
That's cap. Totally cap.
Yeah, I don't think so, Bret. I'm sorry. I think you're sadly mistaken, man. Because you couldn't even find Davey Boy Harley. He barely showed up to the arena. How could he give 100% and he barely was even showing up? So that's just that's very suspicious there. I don't agree with that by any means. I don't think that was the whole story behind it. I think Bret's kind of taking up for Davey, not just because Davey's not here anymore, but that was his brother-in-law, and he's making it look good. Let's be honest. I mean, he's agreed with the finish. I agree with the finish. The sunset flip is a great finish. He saved Mitch to another wrestler, and Killer Bees, he said, and he thought was lame. No, he's right about that part. That I agree. He did said that it comes out of nowhere. I mean, let's look back.
Tearing apart of both participants. Sunset flip.
So yeah, the finish, I agree. That's very, very true. Very true. So I that's one thing I disagree with. There's no way possible that you think that British could give 100% knowing that he was under influence. I'm not saying to try at all 0%, but I don't think that he gave 100%. There's no way. They could barely find him, let alone do that. So I think Bret's just taking up for him, maybe a little bit too much for that matter. So Jody Sims, salute. You said, can I have Mod? Well, here's the thing with Mod, Jody Sims. It's my first time seeing you in a live chat. Welcome to the locker room. Appreciate you coming out. If you come by the channel more often, like the live streams and when I do launch videos, or shorts, etc., but mostly live streams and videos, if I see you on a regular basis, and comment like you are now, then I could give you a mod, but I can't just give it to you just off first time seeing you in the live chat. Kind of earn your way, So, and also it ain't not just by showing up in live stream. Also, you can super chat the channel. You can also cash at me if you do that quite often. That's no way getting the mod. Now, I'm not saying you got to give me $300-400 of a super chat and cash app either. I'm just saying a nice, generous donation to the channel. If you do it on a regular basis or showing up to streams on a regular basis in videos, then yeah, I could do that. But those are those qualifications are a branch. ASMR Dog Walk, salute to you up to the locker room. You said Bret said he was on crack the previous night and Bret had to carry the whole match. True, very true. Yes, that you are absolutely correct. That's what I was reading earlier. And you said him and Jim Neidhart was smoking up crack the previous night. Yep. And think about it. I said that British Bulldog's not here with us anymore. The name you just mentioned, Jim Neidhart, which is Natalia's dad, he's not here. He's no longer with us either because due to that lifestyle. Said it was a great match though, nonetheless. Oh, it was an amazing match. Definitely 5-star match. The doctor lost respect. Salute to you, said Bulldog all day. Yeah, Bulldog did his thing. His ultimate, like I said, he couldn't live long due to his lifestyle, and he passed away at age 39. But yeah, salute to him most definitely, though. Most definitely salute to him and what they all done. But yeah, guys, there's another interview, though. Another interview. Bret Hart did another interview. I forgot the name of the channel of the person he interviewed with, but he talks about this again, same match. This is will be a second interview of what Bret Hart had, and we'll pull that up shortly. So let's see. Yes, very, very good match. I enjoyed the match. Very good Summerslam. Very good way to close out the show. I want to add that as well. Very good way to close out the show. So let's see what Bret Hart had to say. And this is a whole total different interview. So let's see. All right, I'll have this interview up in a second. Bret Hart does another interview.
Well, Wembley was, I think that was one of my defining moments. And it was, I always thought it was one of the most beautiful matches there ever was in wrestling. It was, the best thing about that match was the fans and the crowd. Everybody was so passionate about wrestling at that time. Wrestling was huge over here in the UK. I don't know if it ever got bigger. And I knew that the best thing about the Wembley match was that if it was going to be me and Bulldog in Wembley, and I didn't know for quite a while what the matchup was going to be. And I was the one that suggested Bulldog. And I know that there was 2 options, and I heard about it from Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Mr. Perfect, who were doing the commentary back in those days. And they said it's either going to be Wembley Stadium against the Bulldog, or it's going to be Washington Cap Center against somebody else. They didn't know who for sure. And so I thought about it, and I thought, well, I'm going to go in and suggest to Vince that if it's England, that it should be the Bulldog, and if it's the Washington Cap Center, it should be Shawn Michaels, because they had him in mind for me to work with. And lo and behold, I did eventually found out that I was working with Davey, and I told Vince when he first booked the match, I said, "You better put us on last." I said, but nobody also top it. I promised, I said, it'll be one of the greatest matches that you've ever seen, period. And I remember he came to me a few weeks later as the summer went on and said, I hope you can top it because you're on last. We changed the whole card to put you guys on last because he basically told me, he goes, I don't think anybody can top you guys, so we'll have to put you on last. And the funny thing about all that is I did have a rehearsal match with Davey before he got injured that summer, and it was probably about end of June or early July, but we knew we were wrestling at Wembley, and Vince threw us in just a match to see how well we could kind of click together and jive. And it's funny because I remember we went to the ring and we had just a shitty match. Just nothing came off right, and it was one of those TV tapings where a lot of things going on, a lot of distractions, and Davey just wasn't up to speed that day, nor I, and we had a really lousy match. I remember walking back to the dressing room. I can remember Vince looking at me like, it's going to get better than that, right? And it's like, yeah, it'll get way better by, I said, it's just an off night. And it was just an off night. But Wembley always stands out because I knew at the time that, I knew I had a really strong following here in England. Like, I would say my following here in England was just every bit as strong as Davey's following, and maybe stronger. But it was pretty easy for me to understand that the way the storyline would go, that the British fans would have to back the British guy in the match, and that as much as fans loved me, they would go for Davey in the match. And at the same time, I also knew, I said, nobody knows much. It could go either way. Davey wasn't losing too many matches in those days, and I was the champion, so I wasn't losing too many matches. And it had that nice question mark about, like, I don't know who, like, when you really think about it, it's like, who's going to win? Maybe it'd be a disqualification or a count out or some kind of an exit where neither one of the baby faces loses any value. Like, I could still win, and Davey's. There's lots of outcomes that you can put in place that protect both the wrestlers and keep them both strong. Like, it could have been, but being on last at the end of that show, you almost know that, okay, it's got to be a clear-cut decision for this last match. It won't be a count out or something. And I always thought, I knew months and months before the match ever happened. I said, the beauty about this match is no one knows what's going to happen. So I could tell when me and Davey got face to face in the ring. You could feel it. I could feel it then. It's like, this place is alive, and everyone's like, this is the match I've been waiting all night for, because they don't know who's going to win. And when you have those kind of that kind of a backdrop for a match, you can't have anything but a great match. I don't think. But I know that for me, I plotted out in my head for 2 months exactly, move for move, every single thing I was going to do in that match. And when I showed up in I tried calling Davey all summer, and I couldn't get a hold of him. He got injured in about middle of July and went home with some kind of injury or supposed injury. I never know if it was a legit injury or not, but I personally think Davey was in the midst of a serious drug problem back in those days, and I think he went home and wasted away for about 6-7 weeks and pretended he was hurt, and did a lot of drugs when he was home, and he showed up in Wembley, and he was, just to be honest, he was not prepared. He was out of shape a little bit. He was super paranoid and really panicked. And I saw him the night before the show, and there's an interview in that Summerslam that shows just before the match, and it's got me talking about Windsor Castle and all that stuff. But that interview was actually done on Saturday night in the Wembley Stadium, and was done as a pre-tape. We just taped it that night, and they played it just before the match, like it just happened. But it was on that Saturday night in the dressing room in Wembley Stadium that Davey came to me, and basically, because I called him, I said, "Why didn't you answer my calls all summer? I've been calling you every day." And he's like, and he just kind of broke down and confessed to me that he fucked up, and he was not ready, and he was really scared that he was going to screw up everything the next day. And he was very fear, like he was very afraid of what was going to happen. And I remember I told Davey, I said, Davey, you're going to have to just trust me. Trust everything I say and everything I do, and just trust me, and I'll help you. I'll carry you all the way through this match, and I'll make sure that we get this whole story of mine is going to come out, whether you like it or not. We're going to do this thing my way, and you're going to be a great champion tomorrow, whether you know it or not. And you're going to have to follow my storyline here. And giving Davey all his credit, I mean, he did show up the next day and he listened to every word I said, and we had this great match. But I know that for me, that match was just such a great match. I know that fans here in England that were there for it. Whenever I see fans that say I was at Wembley, I always go, where were you sitting? Like, I hope you had a good seat, because that was maybe one of the greatest matches of all time. And I couldn't have given more or spent more from my body that night. Probably that and the Ironman match were the two hardest matches I ever had, but I know I gave it all. And the hardest part of the match was carrying Davey for 45 minutes. I can remember the very first sequence of moves that me and Davey and I had down in the ring. It was only about 2 minutes into the match.
Goodness gracious, 45 minutes. Man, that's a lot of time. Let's see what you guys got to say. Brian Robinson said, epic match. Bulldog stayed out doing the cocaine the night before and Brett Carey. Yep. You guys watched King and Queen of the Ring. Yep, absolutely did. Great event. James K said Goldberg's backstage. Mr. Gilbert reacts, said yes, KAQ was a decent show, quality match with story, King and Queen of the Ring. And Mr. Gilbert reacts, said they went on after Macho versus the Ultra Warrior or Ultimate Warrior. So he's saying it's facts. He also said, don't forget Ric Flair was in that match with Mr. Perfect, Big Star Power. Summerslam 92 was lit. Very, very lit. It was definitely awesome. Very awesome pay-per-view. And of course, that match was awesome.
And I'm awesome!
All right, let's head back to this interview. See what else Mr. Bret Hitman Hart had to say. He is spitting game, and he is dropping gems what happened during the match. They had this planned out for quite some time. Didn't know it was planned that long, and Davey did not answer. Like I read earlier, he didn't answer his phone calls whole summer to prepare because he was getting drugged up the whole summer. And he, like Bret said, he thought he was trying to fake an injury. That boy know he was toe up. No, he was toe up. Shame on you, Bret Bulldog. But I know he's not here with us anymore. But man, that was crazy. But Bret, I got to give it to Bret. He definitely carried the match with class again, and with all that pressure on him. Because he has to go last. Tell Vince McMahon did to get the cards dealt with Bret Bulldog not able to hold himself together. But let's continue on the interview with Bret Hart, talking about his match with Bret Bulldog and SummerSlam 92.
That Davey gasped up to me that he was fucked. He forgot everything. He forgot every single thing I told him. And about the 2-minute mark, he was blank and panicking. And I can remember, if you never see Bret Hart, or very rarely anyway, see Bret Hart talking in his matches like so many of these guys today, that are always whispering right in each other's ear and talking to each other and telling each other what to do. And I hate that. That's a fail, automatic, lousy wrestler. It should be the crowd. Everybody was so...
Is that true? Do you guys think that when a wrestler talks throughout the match trying to walk a guy through, that automatically makes him a lousy wrestler? Man, I didn't really think about that deep, but he may be on to something. It's okay to walk through things here and there on the fly, but if you do every match talk like that, that is kind of bad because you're not prepared for a full match. and everything is as we go. But Bret Hart got a point. You remember Bret's old school. Let's continue on.
But that match in Wembley was one of the only matches where you do catch me communicating with Davey constantly through the match to tell him what to do next and tell him what to do next. And I did. And Davey followed everything to a T, but being caught doing that kind of stuff, matches like so many of these guys, he forgot everything. He forgot every single thing I told him. And about the 2-minute mark, he was blank and panicking. And I can remember, if you never see Bret Hart, or very rarely anyway, see Bret Hart talking in his matches like so many of these guys today, that are always whispering right in each other's ear and talking to each other and telling each other what to do. And I hate that. That's a fail, automatic, lousy wrestler. He should be demoted to the first match for him being caught doing that kind of stuff. But that match in Wembley was one of the only matches where you do catch me communicating with Davey constantly through the match to tell him what to do next and tell him what to do next. And I did. And Davey followed everything to a T. But it was a beautiful match and a beautiful story. And I never forget it. I never forget the fans that were there. And I wish I could have been like you, some of you, and sat in the crowd and watched that match.
I guess it was the situation that he was in, and therefore the action that you had to take, that probably gives you that added satisfaction that it was such a great night, in spite of.
Well, I give Davey credit. I don't mean to make people think less of Davey, because Davey gave it all that day, and if anything, he rose to the occasion and sucked it up and delivered a better match than he ever dreamed he'd pull together. But for a long time, even after that night, Davey never really thanked me for the match. He never ever said, "Hey, I know you saved my ass that night." And
whoa, is that true? So you mean to tell me after everything Bret Hart did, carrying through the match, walking through everything, even recited the match after Davey Boy forgot the whole match during the summertime after duck and dodge of Bret Hart's calls and put him over as Intercontinental Champion with all the pressure on him, with the stakes being high? You'd even thank him? All right, British Bulldog. I know you, like I said, at that time, I know he's not here with us anymore. That's wrong, British Bulldog. You go on the list for that one. That's a list moment right there. You go on the list.
You just made the list!
Yeah, that's not cool, British Bulldog. How could you not do that? I mean, Bret didn't have to do that for you. If that was any other wrestler, they would let you go out there and embarrass yourself. Like Bret said, he don't normally talk in his matches, especially during the whole match. You should at least thank the man for putting you over like that in a huge, huge fashion. No one else I know would have done it for him in that kind of form. So yeah, that's kind of messed up, British Bulldog, man. I guess some people just never learn. Well, let's continue on the interview. It's almost done, by the way.
But he kind of seemed to forget the next day that any of that even happened. And, I never really felt that he showed much gratitude for everything I did for him that day. And then it's quite a few years later that he did tell me, told me exactly what I just told you, that he was completely screwed that day and he had nothing, and that I carried him all the way through, and he thanked me, said that was all your match, and he thanked me for it, and so I know that it was appreciated.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that's crazy what Bret Hart said about British Bulldog. Wow. Man, at least he thanked him later on, guys. That was good that British Bulldog was able to thank Bret Hart. Like I said, we would never got that match if it wasn't for Bret Hart putting it up. And British Bulldog, you got carried in that match. I mean, this man got carried, and all he had to do was listen to Bret Hart's commands of what he had to do in the match, at least follow his lead, I should say. And he did that, would have been good. Definitely would have been solid if he had did just that, which he did. Would have been way worse though. Way worse if that did not go down in that form. But I did not know he didn't appreciate him, but he did appreciate him later. So salute to British Bulldog on that. Even though you should have, maybe he felt embarrassed or he just drugged out. Who knows? But I want to say with Bret Hart doing that for British Bulldog, does this match prove that Bret Hart is one of the GOATs of all time? Does that mean that Bret's definitely one of the best to ever do it, to carry all that weight on him and load and to do so much with so much pressure on him because he knew his career was riding on it. Like I said earlier, in British Bulldog's career riding on it. I mean, he was the Intercontinental Champion. He went last, and he was in there for match for 25 minutes. He went over the WWF Championship, which was Macho Man Randy Savage, who faced the Ultimate Warrior, and that match was 28 minutes, and it ended in a countout. He went way after them. I think there was maybe 3 matches after them. Because you had Undertaker versus Kamala after Warrior and Savage. Then you had Tanaka versus the Berserker. That was a 5-minute match. The Undertaker with Kamala was a 3-minute match. So all those matches passed him up, you know. That's the crazy part about it. Yeah, he definitely salute to Bret Hart for putting out that great classic match. And I would say makes him one of the GOATs. He was definitely one of the GOATs at that particular time. Miss Gilbert Reaction said Bret was on the way to the. Yeah, so that's a lot to do. For, like I said, I don't see our average wrestler just calling it and make it seem so perfect, but Bret was a perfectionist. He was the excellent execution, the best there is, the best there was, best there ever will be, and that's why that match will go down. It's one of the best ever in history and also in SummerSlam history, because that match we talked about to this day, 32 years later. So that was just an amazing thing that these guys did for each other. But that's what guys do. That's that kind of talent do. They put each other over. They do whatever they can. So that's just a crazy part about it. But I like how that went down. I mean, if the match turning out fine, even though, like I said, you know, British Bulldog being under influence. So, man, it's just wild though. But British Bulldog definitely had major drug issues. Definitely had major drug issues, and thank God Bret was there for him. We'll have one more little clip here. And I think he talks about the original plan of SummerSlam 92. He's going to talk about that again on Inside the Ropes. If you guys know what the original plan was for Mr. Bret the Hitman Hart, he's going to tell you what it was for SummerSlam 92. So let's see what that is. Pull that up in a second. It's more like the last interview that we'll cover. But let's see what Bret Hart said the original plan for SummerSlam 92. Kind of touched on it earlier in the other interview. We're going to go into more depth here. So let's see what Mr. the Hitman had to say.
SummerSlam 92 is an interesting SummerSlam because for like up until about June it was going to be in Washington. It was just going to be a regular SummerSlam, and then they make the decision to move it to Wembley, and it's going to be you and Bulldog. And then you guys have this match that now people talk about as maybe the greatest SummerSlam main event ever. The Intercontinental title headlines the show, 80,000 people. How did you find out that you guys were going to be working together, and where does that match kind of rate for you in your career?
What happened was Jim Duggan and Perfect were doing the commentary in those days with Vince, so they had to be let in on what was going on ahead of time. And both of them were good friends of mine. Both of them came to me and said, hey, we got the lowdown on what's going to happen at SummerSlam. And they told me, said, you're going to wrestle, it's going to be in Washington, D.C., and you're wrestling Sean. And then Kurt was like, no, they told me that it's going to be SummerSlam. So they both said it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be SummerSlam in England, in London, in Wembley Stadium, or it's going to be in Washington, D.C. at the arena they had there. And so I remember thinking about it, and I thought, shit. A guy knew when I won the belt from Perfect that I was probably going to drop the belt in the next 4 or 5 months or 3 months or whenever the time came that Sean was ultimately being built up to be the next champion after me for the Intercontinental, which was fine with me. I thought Sean was a good friend of mine back then, and he was can never take anything away from Sean as a wrestler. He was a great wrestler. And, so I was off. I said, no problem with that. I'm happy to do that. And, so as it got closer and I heard that it was either going to be Washington or it was going to be in London, I kept thinking about it. And I thought, you know what would be great is if I do wrestle in Washington, it might as well be Sean, because he's the guy that they told me that I was dropping the belt to. I said, well, it'd be great if we had a ladder match at Washington in Cap Center. I said, but if it's in England, a babyface match with me and Bulldog would be the way to go in Wembley Stadium. We could go on last at Wembley Stadium. So I went to Vince, and they hadn't made up their mind yet. And I said, I heard 2 stories. I said, it's either going to be in Wembley or London. He goes, well, we haven't made up our mind yet. And I said, well, I just want to suggest a couple of things to you, which was quite good of me to offer to drop the belt, because nobody ever does that. Because holding the belt means you make a lot more money. It means it actually does change your paycheck every week. Being the champion or Intercontinental or tag or any kind of champion is considered a main event, and you get paid better. But offering to drop the belt as willingly as I did to either Sean or Dave was maybe looked pretty good to Vince as being pretty magnanimous or whatever. And I said to Vince, if I wrestle in Washington, let me wrestle Sean in a ladder match. He goes, a ladder match? What's a ladder match? I said, it's a match they used to have in Calgary all the time. And I started to describe it to him. I said, it's a great match for suspense if you do it right. And I've been telling Vince about ladder matches from the first week that I was in WWF as a suggested idea that they could do, because it was always a brilliant match up in my dad's territory, these ladder matches we had for years up there. And I remember Vince goes, I've never seen a ladder match. He goes, show me a ladder match. Pick somebody to have a ladder match with. So I'm like, okay, I'll pick Sean. So he goes, find Sean, and I want you guys to have a ladder match tonight at the TV taping. And I'll see what it is. So I go to find Sean, and I start to explain. I said, we're having this match tonight. Vince wants, it's just a demonstration match, just to show him what the point of the match is. He goes, okay. And I remember he was kind of almost.
I didn't know the original plan was a ladder match for Shawn Michaels versus Bret Hart at SummerSlam. And Vince didn't know what a ladder match was. So basically that came from his dad's territory, Stampede Wrestling, Calgary. I did not know that. That's crazy. Gilbert reacted, I thought this was Undertaker. No, I know that was SummerSlam 94. I don't think that was the original plan for SummerSlam 92. Let's continue on.
A little nervous about what do we do in there? And I had to explain the whole thing to him. So we have the ladder match that night, and Vince, I remember I came back and he goes, I didn't see it. He missed it. He got Vince has a lot of meetings with everybody. Like, I think it was true. Of course he could watch the tape back, so it was all taped. But he said, I didn't see it. And I think he was being honest. He was like kind of mad that he didn't see it. And so he still didn't know what the ladder match was, although he could have just rewound it.
That's cap! Totally cap!
Tape and watch it. Anyway, so I found out that through the next week or two anyway, that they had finally decided on Wembley. And And that was when when I had talked to Vince about the ladder match. I also said the best thing to do if you were going to wrestle in England is put me in a babyface match with Davey. I said, we'll give you the best match. It'll be the best match ever. I said, I think I can give you the best match you've ever had in the company. So it became me and Davey at Wembley. And Davey, I knew, it's kind of hard to explain sometimes, but I knew I was really popular in the UK and Ireland and Germany and Europe in particular. I had really strong popularity, and I just knew it. In fact, I would go so far as to say I was more popular than Bulldog even in England. And I'm not saying that to be mean, but I just think it's true. I was at the height of my popularity anywhere, and England totally embraced me, and I was a big star in England. And I just, you have to know wrestling psychology sometimes. And I knew that when I wrestled Bulldog in Wembley, that when we walked out, people would know who's going to win. I think that's when you have that's when you're going to have a great wrestling match, is when you have two wrestlers that are going to wrestle each other and you really don't know which one's going to go over. And that's where the excitement comes from. You want to see the ending, like what's going to happen, who do you think's going to win? And I knew with Bulldog that like once we walked out to the ring and we were face to face in the ring, there was this, like, all the fans were like, we don't know who's going to win this one. And it became really, everyone was riveted to every move. And that gives you the capability of having a 5-star match or even higher than that. But I think Davey Davey thought that losing the match was like I was like, move over to the side because it's my time now. And Davey, like me, maybe the year before, was looking forward to being champion for a long time, and I'd step into that higher pay slot and all that stuff. And I don't know what Davey's problems were in those days so much, but he had a serious drug problem at that time, and he spent the whole summer doing drugs and doing cocaine. I can remember trying to call Davey. I called him all summer. And he would never return my call. I would never get him on the phone. I kept trying to talk to him about the match, because once I knew I was wrestling Davey at Wembley, I started strategizing and building this match move by move, how it would start. The first move would be this, and then this would happen. I mean, I scripted the match in my head and sort of plotted out every move until I remember going, I've got the match in my head. Like, I've got it memorized. Now I want to call Davey and tell him, like, I got this great match. It's almost like coming up with a jingle or music, like a song or something. You write the melody and it's like, I got Hey Jude in my head and it's going to be the best song ever kind of thing. And it says, I got this match in my head, Davey. And I couldn't get a hold of Davey through the whole summer. 2 months to call, and I called him like sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. I didn't know what he was doing, but I know that it wasn't good, and that he was riding shotgun with Jim the Anvil, who had a serious cocaine problem at the same time. And I'm sad to say that I think both of them squandered their fortune of money that whole summer.
As a once wise man said, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. So British Bulldog was hanging around with Jim Anvil and Neidhart, who also had a drug issue. What you think them boys was doing? They was definitely getting high. Bulldog was hanging with New Jack. Now, I didn't know that. If he was hanging with New Jack, you already know what kind of road he was going. Wasn't a good road. Definitely not at all. That definitely put you on a bigger list.
You just made the list!
Let's continue on this interview with Bret Hart. We're inside the ropes.
Blew probably $500,000 each on cocaine. And I don't think that's an exaggeration either. They just had serious drug problem. And I remember when I got to Wembley, the Saturday, like when you watch the promo for SummerSlam with me and Davey, and I'm talking about Windsor Castle or something like that. That promo was done on the Saturday night and was put in the next day as an insert. And on the Saturday night was the first time I saw Davey in 2 or 3 months, because Davey took the whole summer off because he had a supposed injury, but I think it was mostly what he had was a drug problem. And so Davey, when I saw him in the dressing room on the Saturday night, I was like, why did you call me? I've been trying to call you. And I was pretty mad at him. And he just, sometimes Davey was like a little brother or a little kid to me. And I remember he just confessed. He goes, I'm fucked. And he told me, he goes, he told me he'd been up with Jim Neidhart for 72 hours. They'd been doing cocaine for 3 straight days and he hadn't slept.
Wow, 3 straight days. And they spent $500,000 on drugs. That's not good at all. You said New Jack's allegedly. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if that was actually true. Yes, $500,000. Remember, this is back in 1992 days, so this definitely was a lot of money. Let's see what else more Greg has said. Like I told you guys, he did, mention some of the same stuff from last interview, but he went a little more to depth this time of the original plan, SummerSlam 92, and of Davey Boy's. A little bit more, he talks about Davey Boy's drug issues.
And he barely made the flight to England. And then when he got off the plane in England, he had to do all this media, like interviews and newspaper, and he was being pushed by WWE media to do all these promos and stuff. Anyway, so Davey on a Saturday night almost like with a panic. He was like, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I'm fucked. And I remember I told him, I said, Davey, this is going to be your finest hour. This is going to be the greatest moment of your career, and you're not going to fuck up now. You're going to have to pull up your jock strap and get in there, and he goes, I'm going to lead you through the whole match, step by step, move for move. And I said, we're going to have the best match of all time, whether you like it or not. And he was all, and that's what I do love about Davey is he was really in no shape to make that match and do that match. He was so unprepared for it, but he sucked it up, and Davey delivered everything in that match. He didn't miss out on anything or screw up anything, or he was spot on for the whole match, and that's a credit to Davey. And we had that great match, but I knew in that match that the key to that match was, for me anyways, was the losing part. People always think that winning is everything, but I knew, I said, I could see it, like when I lose this match, I'm going to be the winner, not the loser. There's going to be a sympathy reaction, like a boomerang the other way. People are going to feel bad that they didn't cheer for me because they like me every bit as much as they like Davey, but they had to cheer for Davey because he's British. And I thought there's going to be a boomerang reaction to it. I'm going to become more popular than I've ever been just from losing this match. And that was where I think a lot of wrestlers don't have the right psychology. They worry too much about winning and losing and what it means. It's important to win sometimes, and sometimes it could be just as important to lose. And I knew it for me that day that it was important to lose in that way. It was very dramatic, and that it would be really powerful, and it would increase my popularity. And I don't think Davey got that. I think most people were thinking like this was Davey's big push, and Davey was going to be this big star after that. But I knew, I said, this is going to be the other way around. Like a month later, they came up to me and told me that they wanted me to win the world title. And I could feel it. From the time I had the match with Davey, I think I proved to myself and maybe most of the wrestlers in the dressing room and to the fans that I was as good as any wrestler in the company. And that's what people miss out sometimes.
All right, that is the last interview of Bret Hart versus British Bulldog. But British Bulldog, it showed how bad he was on drugs. But Bret Hart was definitely dropped some gems. He was talking about how they spent $500,000 on drugs, on crack, presumably crack. He also said one thing, that winning and losing isn't everything, that sometimes it's a good time to win, and there is a time where there is a good time to lose. That will make you just as good in the ring when you lose as compared to when you win. So Bret Hart was right about that. And with that being said, he gets
Because I am that damn good.
Bret Hart was definitely spot on about that. But yeah, this is that was what you guys think of this whole interviews, or all three interviews, because we talked about the match of SummerSlam 92. Let's do a quick recap. Talk about SummerSlam 92. We talk about how great the match was. Talk about the finish. Bret Hart do 3 different interviews, 2 were inside the ropes. One was similarly about the match, behind the match. Talk about how Davey Boy was on drugs. Talking about how Bret was frustrated. Now he talks about how the deep secrets of Davey Boy being on drugs. He tried to contact him all summer, couldn't get a hold of him, as he was doing drugs with Jim Advil Neidhart. Then also he mentioned that even though he lost that match putting Bulldog over, and everyone thought that Bulldog would be a star, it would be him to become a star. And he said a month later they approached about becoming WWE champion back in 1992. And now we also hear as well that Mr. Bret Hart as well, he also mentioned that he was spending $500,000 on drugs. And also that the original plan of SummerSlam 92 would have been a ladder match between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and Vince McMahon was not aware of a ladder match, didn't know what it was. Then he said they did a test run. Vince was nowhere to be found. He didn't see the match, which I think Vince did on purpose. My opinion, he didn't want to see a match. He didn't care for ladders back then. They said he had a lot of meetings, and Bret Hart was trying to make an excuse. But other than that, this is very interesting information regarding the SummerSlam 92 match of Intercontinental Championship match between Bret Hart and British Bulldog. It's a SummerSlam, August, Wembley Stadium, 1992, 80,000 in the crowd. And he talked about the crowd, how the crowd loved him and Davey Boy Smith, and they didn't know what to expect. You would have thought that British Bulldog was going to win or Bret Hart was going to win. So that's very, very interesting to see this happening at SummerSlam. And it's crazy. Fast forward 22 years later, now SummerSlam is going to be 2 nights now, starting in 2026 in Minneapolis. So that is the history of SummerSlam for you. That is the match behind British Bulldog and Bret Hart. And that's all I have regarding truth behind SummerSlam 1992 match. You guys let me know, what you thought of this particular match. What stuff you did know about the match or you didn't know. I didn't know the original plan for the match was. Yeah, this was definitely a fire stream. Appreciate all you guys checking out. Now, with that being said, you guys let me know what you think, and not just on the live chat, but also on the playback, if you kept this on playback. And that's all I have. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. Soon 2 videos will pop up. One will be Brock Lesnar legal issues with WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling, NJPW for short. Next video will be how did Liv Morgan become women's champion. Until then, it is OUT.